back on another exciting episode of Starfleet So Hail, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we're talking about Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 8, Surrender.
Dun, dun,
Mommy's
dun.
alright, Daddy's
Da, da,
alright.
da.
They just... How does it go? I don't remember.
Surrender. So I'm going to start singing.
We have a new guest, Kevin. Hello.
Hey,
How's it going?
Good,
Hey,
good.
Kevin.
Greetings from Canada.
Yes,
Canada. Awesome.
T-Dot, right?
Yep.
Very nice, very nice.
More Canadians. Loving the Canadians.
Yes. And we have, let's see here, Joel saying we have 7 guests. He likes it just like I do when we get the Hollywood Squares thing going on. So who knows what'll happen. we did send out 2 more invites, so there's a chance we'll get that. But it's so nice to see you guys. How are you? How's everyone doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah, it's good.
I've got the
Had a
Thursday
busy-
sleepies from being up late.
Yeah, these things happen on Thursdays. I am at my family's house for Passover and that kind of thing. So I only got to see the episode once. So I'm going to require on 1 viewing for today. So normally I see it 2 or 3 times, but I'll watch it again. But yeah, I'm doing good.
I only got to see the episode once today also, but I got to hear it 3 times.
Oh.
So I've heard it like a radio drama a number of times, but I've only got to see it once. So I'm excited to go back and watch it. Maybe take an edible later on, get into the zone and just watch it.
There you go.
Oh my God, we are Hollywood Squares! Yes! Sorry, I just
Hollywood
screamed.
Squares.
You're welcome.
I get to be Jim J. Bullock. I love it. Or who's the new? Oh, sorry, my headphones did not like that.
I think you're Paul Lynde. You're Paul Lynde, if you ask me.
I don't
That's who you
know.
are.
Do I know who Paul Lynde is?
Uncle Arthur from Bewitched.
Oh yes, I do know Uncle Arthur. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
No, that would be Uncle Arthur. We have an Uncle Arthur who comes to the show every now and then. So
Oh.
I can't be Uncle Arthur. That would be him. Jesse and Stanley, welcome back to the show. Everybody meet Kevin. Kevin, you were there before. Kevin's new. So Kevin, as per Starfleet So Hail tradition, we like to give new folks a little space to tell people about themselves, and then also to give a little bit of their Star Trek story. So if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, would you mind go ahead and telling folks all that?
So I'm a guy from suburban Toronto. Actually grew up in Toronto proper, but now living out in the burbs. Trainer by profession and Star Trek nerd, I guess, by hobby. Introduced to the show through my aunt, my mom's youngest sister. She was a big Doctor Who fan. I couldn't watch it as a kid because the theme music was too scary for me. But Star Trek was
the classic theme music. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, that would cause nightmares. So that was for her. So all of her BritCons I would watch with her, and she got me into the Next Generation. So watched it as it first aired as a kid, as a little boy.
Very nice. So,
Nice.
and you've stuck with it.
I have.
What's your
We'll talk
favorite Star
about
Trek? What's that?
without
DS9?
a doubt. Yeah.
That's so
yeah.
like so many people love DS9 the most.
Yeah.
My favorite Star Trek changes every 5 minutes. I can't keep up.
Mine doesn't.
Whichever Star Trek's
Does it?
on. No, I'm just kidding. I really love TNG. I think that when not the best, but it's my personal favorite Star Trek is TNG because I live there. It's like where I grew up in a way. So that's how it goes.
So me
Well,
as a
I'll
big
do a
politics nerd and guy that went to Catholic school, DS9 really hits both. Like hits that sweet spot.
Very, very nice. Well, welcome back, everyone else. We're going to do the quick episode summary. I'll try to be quick. You guys can check me, and then we'll go through what everyone's thoughts on this episode are. I can't wait to hear some of your thoughts, especially Braxton. Let's see how he's doing with Jack Crusher this week. So speaking of Jack Crusher, the episode starts off with Vadik. Basically, well, it starts off with her smoking what I think is a doobie, but who knows? It could be anything in the future. And then she gives Jack an ultimatum saying that every 10 minutes she's going to kill someone. She's also brutally just like nonsensically attacking crew members on the ship and just causing lots of torture, chaos, and kind of cruelty to entice the crew to give up Jack. And meanwhile, the Picard and Jack and Beverly and Sydney are trying their best to kind of get back into the systems because she's locked everyone out. But they're unsuccessful because, well, Vadic's got the control. She's got the bridge. She's taken over the Titan, and so she's locked everyone out. Jack kind of is having a crisis because he doesn't want anyone to die, and unfortunately someone does die. One of my favorite characters. Oh, does it say spoilers down there? Yes, it does. Okay, good, we're safe. One of my favorite characters, Tavine, the Vulcan Deltan. Unexpectedly, Vadic does go around like kind of like suggesting she might kill Mura, or she might kill Esmer, but she ends up killing Tavine. Really cruel villain, this Vadic, let me tell you, because that whole scene had me like really tense. But anyways, Jack offers up that he has developed these powers and that he can kind of control people. So they come up with this plan to maybe override the bridge, to gain control of the bridge using Picard's override codex. And so far so good. It looks like it's working, but then unfortunately Vadic notices what's going on, stops it from happening, and then basically like taunts Jack some more and gives him another 10 minutes before she's going to kill someone else. So that's when Jack's like, I can't do this. And Sydney kind of frustrated, just kind of like says, oh man, we need like a separate unit that can calculate such and such and such. And Picard goes, so then they go over the data, the M510 unit, and Picard's like, okay, what's the deal, Geordi? We got to do something. We have no other choice. And Geordi's like, look, there's explains to us once again, there's this like division or barrier that's separating the two most dominant personalities. I think the other personalities are more memory engrams than anything else, Data and Lore. And if I lower this partition, and if Lore happens to win and control everything, he could erase Data and we won't get him back. So that's the risk that they have to take. And so they go ahead and take it. Meanwhile, on the Shrike, we get really touching, long-awaited scenes with Deanna and Riker. And hey, PJ, welcome. And they're like, kind of lamenting their situation and talking about their beef that they've kind of had this whole season that we've been hearing about. And we get kind of the gist of it, where Deanna, out of kindness, was trying to help carry Riker's pain using her telepathic or empathic powers. And unfortunately, she forgot the cardinal rule of a counselor, which is you can't skip to the end of healing. So that was really good advice. I actually thought of you, Trevor, when she said that line, because I was like, that's something Trevor would say. So just why you guys are in my mind when I watch this stuff. Anyways, so they're going back and forth on that, and just as the one of Vadic's people comes in to further antagonize them, we see a sword plunge through. We hear the familiar Klingon music, and Worf comes and saves the day. And it's a hilarious moment. We'll talk more about it, but basically he like confesses to Counselor Troy how her friendship has like really changed him, and like how he's been working on it. He thinks about her as he's working on himself. Riker says that's inappropriate, which I thought was really hilarious. Anyways, he and Raffi and Riker and Troy realize that something's up. The body of Picard has been kind of pillaged, and they took the aromatic syndrome pieces out. So they're still trying to figure out what's going on with that. And then going back to the Titan, we get, I think, probably my favorite scene in all of Star Trek in a long time. No, I added the in a long time because there's probably other scenes that I'm forgetting about at the moment. But we actually see inside the M510's neural net, and we see a representation of Data and Lore, and they're kind of, in this like space with classical music playing, and Data is kind of just like looking through memories and stuff like that. And as soon as the barrier, and Lore's just taunting him as Lore does, and as soon as the barrier goes up, Lore starts to attack Data, and he basically tells Data like, look, brother, it's over. I'm way stronger than you. They think that you're gonna, somehow gain control of this body, but it's not going to happen. And sure enough, Lore starts to chip away at Data. Data's like pulling out all these memories. He starts with his deerstalker cap, which I'm wearing because I have the same one, and then, or the pipe rather, I should say, and then the deerstalker cap. And then he goes on to present other items, including Tasha's hologram. And Lore just kind of takes them, and it seems like Lore's just like throwing them in the air, and that they're just, disappearing. But and meanwhile, like on the other side, they're just seeing a bunch of dots, like blue dots representing Data and red dots representing Lore. And as Data's giving more and more of his things away, more of these like blue dots that represent Data are kind of disappearing. And Picard even says like, oh my gosh, this looks like a surrender more than anything, which is probably, the source of the title, among other surrenders that are occurring in this episode. But anyways, eventually, so the last thing that Data gives to Lore as like a memory that he cherishes is Spot. And well, I don't know how you guys felt about this, but I lost it crying. I was like just nuts because it's like such a sweet moment, because Data talks about how Spot taught him how to love, and like how like this simple animal, I think he calls him, or something like that, like, has probably had the most profound effect on me. And so he gives Lore Spot. Lore actually kind of just like takes him. He's like, ha ha ha, this is the last the last memory. And everything turns red, and then Data starts to glitch out and disappear. But to Lore's surprise, the opposite starts to occur, and he starts to get affected by it. And he's like, what's happening? And then that's when Data comes back, and he's like, haha, I knew that you were lying, that you would actually treasure my memories as trophies, and so each one you took, you were taking me and integrating into part of you. So basically Data tricked Lore into integrating with Data, and that's what happened. So the two personalities finally integrate. Data is the dominant personality, and he wakes up. And meanwhile, Jack is on the bridge. I forgot about this part. Meanwhile, Jack is on the bridge trying to like buy time, because they needed the time while the Data Lore stuff was happening. And he's going head to head with Vadic, and he has a thermal detonator looking thing from Star Wars in his hand. And Vadic gives him a little bit of information about who he might be. And so Jack is like, listen, you got to let the crew go, or else I'll just kill myself, because obviously I'm what you want most. So she dismisses the crew, except Seven stays behind. So while this stuff is going on up here on the bridge, Data comes back, and he beautifully takes control of the ship with like this like hilarious thing about monologuing protoplasms. And then
He's
Jack,
a pissed off security system.
pissed off security system. Jack initiates the device, and it turns out to be a shield. He shields himself and Seven, and the bridge opens up, and Vadic's last words are fucking solids. And then she gets ejected out into space and frozen, and smashes against the hull of the Shrike, the Shrike, yep. Which I have to say, like, I don't, I'm not, I'm more about rehabilitation for villains and stuff like that, but it was immensely satisfying to see that scene after all the kind of struggles that she's caused and all the pain she's caused to this poor crew. And the senseless killing. So yeah, it was very satisfying to watch that. I don't know how Marcelo feels. He's usually very hype about this kind of thing, so we'll still find out. Anyhow, after that, the crew kind of have a momentary sigh. Oh, by the way, Raffi also has a badass freaking scene when she comes aboard and kills a bunch of changelings, and again, more funny moments there. They all after that, we have like this really touching moment again with Geordi and Data, which I've also been waiting for, to hear like them kind of profess how deep their friendship is again and like solidify it. And I think Data says something really sweet, like, I feel immense gratitude knowing that you're my friend, or something like that. I have to go back and see what the actual line is, but it was very touching. Another moment where I cried. So then they all gather in the conference room, the famous scene that we've seen in the trailer. And it was very cool also, I thought, where they kind of like are going around and ideating and doing their TNG thing. And we get a few little kind of moments with Dr. Crusher kind of explaining, she kind of says like, oh, like, even though hardship brought me here, there hasn't been like a day I haven't thought of you. And like, she and Troy have this cute moment where I actually do this, by the way. I imagine sometimes when I need advice, like someone that I know who would give a really good advice, I imagine what would they say, and I kind of see them and hear their voice. So I thought that was very relatable. But we get down to the heart of the matter, which is Troy saying that she needs to, I think I need to meet your son, because she senses like a great darkness around him, through him, not in him, which is interesting. So it implies some kind of possession or something like that. And so they agree. And so the episode ends with she and Jack sitting together, and they are kind of going into a regression of some sort or something like that. And Troy takes him to the door, and just as they go to a close up the door and the episode ends, we still don't know what's behind the door. We still don't know what exactly Jack is, but there's a whole lot of other stuff in the episode and in the season that we do know. And so I'm excited to find out what happens. Hopefully we find out in episode 9. Would love to hear your theories and thoughts, guys. PJ, go ahead and kick us off.
I was going to say that
with your thoughts on this episode.
That line that Data says to Geordi, which is like my favorite moment of the episode, when he says the contraction and Data's like, no, I didn't. And he's joking with him and stuff. And
that's awesome.
At the end, Data says, and it would be negligent of me not to say, despite my many changes, the one thing that will remain forever constant is my gratitude for your friendship.
Yes.
And there's a lot of great dialogue in this episode like that. When Worf meets Troy after all those years, and he's goes on that whole spiel, and Riker's like making jokes. He's like, is this a rescue mission or a continuation of the torture? Like, there's a lot of great lines like that in this episode. I'm over the Jack stuff. I don't care what his superpowers are and where they come from at this point. I know we're going to get the answer in the next episodes, and there's only 2 left, so okay, cool. I'm done. I was done with Vadic, but I gotta say, Ed Speleers and Amanda Plummer, like, really, like, were the highlights in terms of acting. Even like Marina Sirtis was great, and Jonathan Frakes as always, and all of them. Gates McFadden and Patrick Stewart. But when Vadic is like kind of teasing Jack on the bridge, even though I'm over all that, I'm still like, well, this is juicy. Like, this is good drama. And I'm hard-pressed to find anything that was wrong with this episode. Like, the whole it's a great Data lore episode that you can add to the library of Data lore episodes. And the way that happens, the only nitpick I would say about that particular aspect was the lens flare heaven that they're in. I would have liked some kind of like other kind of visual representation, because it was like, I'm over, like, I don't dig all this like in your face. It's kind of like they needed to fill the scene with something flashy, when if it was just them and in front of like a plain background, I would not have cared. Like, look at Q and Picard in that episode where Picard apparently dies. What's that called?
Tapestry,
yeah. Right.
Like, just a plain background, no fancy effects or anything. That's a nitpick, but I mean, I loved everything. I loved it was a balance of like really dark elements, like dead bodies in the hall, and like they're leaning into this possession element where you can kind of like the first time when he goes into that ensign or crew member's brain and he's in a dark hallway and he's looking at the bodies and then he gets shot and Jack can feel his pain. All of that was really good. So it's one of the best of the
Oh, so
season.
you're not
Definitely.
quite
I
it's
thought
up
you
there.
said you
Yeah.
don't care about Jack anymore.
We're not.
PJ.
That's all right.
No, the mystery of like what he is and where he comes from.
Gotcha.
I know it has
Let-
something to do with evil, ancient possession, and whatever. I don't care. I'm pretty sure it's power rates. Like I think it just seems to be that's where it's point. Like, is that too foolish? Like DS9.
I don't know.
didn't know.
We'll get to Ken in a second, but I want to
Anyway,
go to Trev next.
I'm done
'cause
with my thing. So yeah, go
Ken
ahead.
has a good
Sorry.
theory, PJ, that you might like. And no worries. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Trev has to
good.
leave early, possibly, or does have to leave early, rather. No, okay, I was wrong. That was it later. That was later.
I do, but I got a while, so don't jump
Okay,
around.
well, you go next anyway, since I was going to put you on. Overall thoughts, impressions about this episode, and feel free to highlight anything.
Wait, PJ, did you finish?
Oh, I'm done. Yeah.
Oh, you
Go
are?
ahead.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I was not expecting to cry, because I really haven't this season. I know everybody said like there's been one or two moments where they've gotten super emotional, but the scenes between Riker and Troy really got me in the feels, for a variety of reasons, particularly conversations about grief, but conversations about grief with a spouse, because I've gone on and on about grief and its significance to the human experience on other conversations, so I don't want to like use up this time for that. But I've never really talked about experiencing it together with someone who you share so much with, including the pain itself. And so that just hit me like right across the head. I was not expecting it. So I was just like sitting there boohooing last night, at 11:45 or midnight, whatever time it was when I was watching. So recovering from that in order to enjoy the rest of the episode was very difficult, but I somehow managed and loved it. My only nitpicks are nitpicks. I agree with PJ. The weird Android heaven thing didn't really click for me. I actually would have preferred that they did something kind of like they did in Picard season 1, where there was an actual set that was just redressed to let you know that it was something different. Sorry about my dog. He's very upset right now. He would also like to share his thoughts on the episode. But no, truthfully, I thoroughly enjoyed it. My only negative or critiques are nitpicks, and I really got mired in the grief piece and all of the emotionality around their relationship. And so I'm very much looking forward to watching it a couple more times so that I can enjoy the rest of it. I was very happy that somebody didn't die, but I was very sad that someone else did.
Excellent. Thank you. Jesse, would you like to go next?
Sure. I don't have much to say, so I'll make this very quick. I honestly, guys, I don't care for this episode. I don't. It was very underwhelming. There was good scenes, and I feel like the writing was fine, but I think it was just too choppy for me. Like it was just like real quick, and then boom, it was done. I don't know. There was just something off about it, and I'm already at this point of I'm like, okay, we're at the last 2 episodes. Let's find out what Jack's at. I'm getting a little burnt out. But I love Jack and I love Beverly and I love all those scenes, but it was just really, really underwhelming. Even the last scene, I feel, with them in the conference room, it was great. It was great seeing them all there, but it was short and it was just quick and it went straight into the end of it. So I don't know. I'm still trying to process everything. I did like the Riker and Troy scenes. I thought that was very good, especially because we've been waiting so long to see them. And then Braxton, I love your cat, by the way. When I see you on screen, my cats would be doing the same thing if they were allowed in here. But anyways, but so I liked those, and I really liked, Troy at least acknowledging Beverly. At some point, this woman needs like a hug or something, and she at least gave her a handshake. I was like, at least someone touched her. Like, yeah, she's been gone all these years. No one thought to look for her. No one thought to be like, where are you at? I don't know.
Yeah,
Where-
we need I agree with that we definitely need a little bit more on that. But for now, like we'll talk more, I'm sure, on Crush Combo when we focus on
we
Beverly. But
are.
carry on.
It's
I didn't mean
funny.
to
Me
interrupt you.
no.
I get
Me and
excited about
Michelle.
Beverly.
Me and Michelle are just kind of like, I don't know, because everyone's like, it was so great, I cried, and I'm all, I didn't have much feelings. I'm so sorry. So, but I did like and I even felt Vadic's death was very quick. Like it was just, she's gone. I don't know. I maybe felt she deserved a better death. I don't know. Again, it was just underwhelming for me. So it's hard to process all those emotions, but my rant and Crusher combo is going to be short too. You guys are going to have the floor pretty much.
Can't wait. Crusher Combo's on tonight at 8:30 or 9?
It's at 9. Yeah.
Okay, 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Eastern.
And I was
Eastern
gone for a
Daylight
bit.
Time.
My mom wants to talk, so I might jet out here a little early before Crusher
Let me
Combo to
just-
talk to my mom.
Let me just
No
say real
worries.
quick there, Jesse.
Mhm.
I absolutely loved your run through of the original series movies recently. I love that. So thank you for that.
I'm-
That was beautiful.
I'm so happy you guys enjoyed my watching the original movies for the first time.
That was
They
very
were
cool. Yeah.
The last one was enjoyable. I will admit. So
So you liked Star Trek 6?
I do. I think I
Okay.
put it on my second favorite out of all of them.
Ooh. Oh, very
Mhm.
good. Very good.
Let me
Jill
ask
wants
real
to
quick:
know-
was Worf in Star Trek 6 surprising to you?
Yeah.
I saw that tweet.
I tweeted, I was like, Colonel Worf, what? And then even the Kittimer, I heard Kittimer and I was like, wait, like the massacre? Everyone was laughing, I think. I think my biggest tweet was when I heard the TNG theme in the first movie. I said, am I having a stroke? That one took off. So
Jill wants to know, why do you say no one thought to look for her? How do you know that? I'll
just
answer.
so
I have a.
go ahead.
I-
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that we haven't heard anything of anyone trying to find her. I think me and Michelle are
That's-
like,
yeah.
if they even if they just mention like, oh, we tried to find you and couldn't, and Beverly was just really good at hiding, fine. But even with the way Troy said, you know, even with you gone, I thought of you and you were in my heart, but it doesn't really say that they tried to look for her and wonder why she was gone. So that's why.
She was in
Yeah,
London
we'll
long
see.
enough
Maybe
for her
there's a
son to develop an accent. So it's not
They were in.
like-
I know they were in London. I'm all like, Sean looks over and. Anyways, again, other
Cake
section.
is Eternal says, I find they switch back and forth between scenes too much. It breaks up the drama too much for me. On the Ready Room, Jonathan Frakes was saying that this was a very technical episode, like in terms of both the script and like filming it. I think for me it flowed just fine, but like I can understand why some folks would be like, oh, the flow's not right, or it's off, or you know, too quick, as you said, and you know, a bit choppy or whatever. But I liked it. It reminded me of, I don't know, it was just, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but let's go next. I'm doing it like I'm just like Hollywood Squares. This is so much fun. Ken, why don't you go next? I gotta keep
All
track
right.
of who's gone then, since I'm not going in order.
So I am at my mother's house, as I said earlier, and I watched the episode this morning at 9:00, and she was in the kitchen having breakfast, and I was like screaming and I was laughing and I was like, oh my God. And so when I went downstairs, my mother was asking, what's going on up there? Is everything okay? What are we doing? So I think I had the most vocal, responses to this episode in a long time. I thought, in 1 hour, to what you were saying before, Sohail, how many characters were they trying to service in 1 hour, right? If you think about the Next Generation episodes, that's why you have the Riker episode or the Troy episode, or every once in a while the Beverly episode, right? So because you focus on that character, here you have all of those characters, plus Vadic, plus Jack, plus Seven, plus Shaw. You have all of these characters they're trying to service in this 1 hour, and you're trying to do really powerful scenes. You know, the scenes with Riker and Troy took the episode. I mean, that was brilliant. And then as soon as you threw Worf in there, that was just a brilliant scene. Because I always was wondering, remembering that, Worf and Deanna had this thing in the 6th and 7th season of The Next Generation. And here, that this is an appropriate line from Riker was just the best. And then you had the Data versus Lore scene. And then you had the Geordi and Data come together scene, right? And then you had the big climax on the bridge scene and all the Vadic stuff. So you had a lot going on. And I think that they did a pretty good job. And then you ultimately come down to the Deanna and Jack scene that sort of wraps it up. And I'm thinking to myself, they're going to go to this door again and they're going to cut it out right again. Basically, they're going to be right where, Jack, it's time to find out who you are. Jack, it's time to find out who you are. Jack, to be continued, to be continued, to be continued. It's like, oh my goodness, come on, people. Well, I'm going to tell you who Jack is now because I have a very good idea. I have a theory.
You're not going to
and I don't think that
it's a theory.
I'm not going to spoil it. I don't know for sure. And this theory may be totally nuts. But if you recall, Terry Matalas loves the original series. And during the scene in the bar, when before Shaw came in and did his big spiel about Wolf 359, Picard was saying that he and Jack Crusher the Elder were on their way to Argelius. Now, Argelius, I don't think Terry Matalas throws anything away. So Argelius was mentioned one other time, and look at that, PJ. You know where I'm going. Argelius was mentioned in an episode called Wolf in the Fold, and in the episode Wolf in the Fold, there was this ancient evil that lived many lives that was on Earth thought to be Jack the Ripper. This ancient evil was able to possess people, was able to control people, and when you saw him in the original episode, you saw all kinds of smoke and crazy things, and his name in the episode was Red Jack. But he also had a name, Baratus, Nictu, many different names. So how it's kind of on the nose if you think about it. Red Jack, Jack Crusher, the Red Door. I don't think it's quite like that. But I do think that this creature, which at the end of the episode, they beamed into space, big full dispersal, widest dispersal, they beamed into space. Dr. McCoy said, this thing can't die, but it'll live in many, many different parts, beamed apart, but it would slowly start to come together, and it would take centuries for it to come back together. And when it came back together, boy, would it be pissed. So my crazy theory is that this ancient evil, and the line that Deanna says in this episode is almost identical to a line that's said in Wolf in the Fold, this darkness, great darkness here. If you watch the seance part of Wolf in the Fold, it's almost line for line, word for word, the same thing. And again, Terry did mention Argelius. My theory is that we're going up against Red Jack from the original series, Wolf in the Fold.
It's a very
crazy
theory.
Crazy.
It is a bit wild though, and I think we should definitely explore it in the towards the end.
Dude, I think you may have cracked the code. I don't
know. We'll talk about it further.
That would certainly be unexpected. It would be something.
It would be very
unexpected.
Someone
hardcore knowledge.
That's why I don't think it's gonna happen.
Pick up on that. I would totally miss that. I would never guess Red Jack from Wolf in the Fold.
If Ken's right, then Ken automatically earns a place on everyone's bank robbery team. whatever gemstones you're trying to heist, Ken is part of your plan.
I love it.
So Ken, should I watch that episode before these next two?
You should.
I would.
I've never seen the original series, so I can't. I have no idea what you're talking about.
So it's interesting because it was John Fielder who has a crazy voice, and But what ended up happening is, in the episode, you see that Scotty is accused of killing women in the episode. They beam down to Argelius, which is a pleasure planet, because Scotty has a bad accident, and McCoy says that he's got to have rest and recreation. So they go to this planet. There's a dancer. Scotty goes and just walks with the dancer in the fog, talks about how the fog reminds him of Scotland and how it's beautiful. And then there's a death. And there's multiple deaths. And in every one of the deaths, there's some reason to believe that Scotty is responsible. There's one scene where they have this seance with one of the magic women in the, the commissioner of the planet's wife is able to read minds. And she dies. And when the lights go down, she screams, lights come up, she dies, and there's Scotty holding her with blood on his hands. And what happens is, it is dark. And what happens is, it's very dark. And what they say is, this is a dark, ancient evil. And so
they said
weak
too, ancient and weak.
Yeah, ancient.
A hunger that never dies.
And a
hunger that never dies. Did they say that? Because that's what they said absolutely in Wolf in the Fold. A hunger that never dies. And what happened was the creature was able to control Scotty, and so Scotty was not responsible for what happened. So basically, we just have, a theory that happens to line up with the facts, like they say in Star Trek 6.
All right. I'm gonna text Michelle right now.
Who knows?
Well done.
If it is that, though, it would be Terry. It would be Terry Matalas reaching deep into the original series.
I also think he'd be very mad that you cracked the code, because that's quite it's very specific. It's all.
I sent a message. I sent a message to Terry Matalas today, and I said, "You did say Argelius, didn't you?" Now, of course, he's not going to answer everybody, but normally Terry is kind of responsive to me somewhat. Not like he's looking at me, but nothing. So that doesn't mean anything. But that's the other thing. They specifically mentioned Argelius. Picard mentioned it, and I thought that was a weird reference back in that episode. Anyway,
on to Marcelo.
Yeah, sorry, I can't say that.
You get one. That's it.
It's one. All right, can I get one? I'll get one.
No. Got it.
I already got
ahead. Use it wisely.
Yeah, okay. I fucking love this episode. This episode to me is my favorite hour of new Star Trek ever. Why? I'll tell you why right now. The storyline with Data trying to fight with Lore and his whole plan to integrate with Lore and to become one was fucking awesome. But the thing that really got me in the feels were when Data started to show trinkets from TNG, like when he showed the hologram of Tasha, when he gave him the playing cards, and when he gave him Spot. And I hate cats, but I just fucking sorry, damn it, I lost it.
Yeah, Marcel, that was 3 now. You owe me.
Yeah, sorry. I just lost it. And the other thing that I really enjoyed about this episode, Trevor mentioned it in his remarks. I absolutely love the dialogue between Deanna and Riker, because how everybody deals with grief is different. But I don't think that we've ever got a really good examination of what grief does to people in the Star Trek universe in any kind of meaningful way. I mean, that's not completely true, because we did have Picard season 2, but the less said about that, the better. But I really, really like how they weaved in how grief affected Riker and Troy in this episode, and it was just goddamn great. And at the very end, when Vadic got thrusted out of the ship and turned into a billion pieces, I cheered like a mofo, because I'm like, you know what, that woman needs to die. There needs to be no rehabilitation of that woman. She needs to die. And the fact that she got sucked out into space, I was like, yes. Oh, so it was so delicious.
Bridge.
Yeah, yes, I was like, PJ, you beat
That was
me
a
there.
cool homage to Air Force One, I think, right? Get off my plane.
No,
that was nice.
no, and when
Doesn't Picard say that in First Contact to Worf or something?
Oh, does he? I don't remember.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, he does.
Get off
the
my
last
bridge.
thing, the last thing where I absolutely lost it, I cried like buckets, was the final scene when Data and Geordi are walking towards the towards the conference room, and he walks in, and Deanna hugs him, and they're all there, and they have like a classic TNG powwow conference. I'm like, oh my god, I'm losing my mind. Yeah, no, there was so many things in this episode that I wanted, like the a version of Data went back. I'm like, yes, this sort of retcons the ridiculousness of Picard season 1 for me.
It's
And I
Data
was
Plus,
like, oh,
right?
yeah, it is Data Plus. So, but yeah, so just finishing up
$9.99
now.
a month.
Yeah. So just finishing up now. So many things about this episode were so many things I wanted to see in this season of, in Star Trek Picard season 3. This episode brought me so much joy from start to finish.
Very nice. On to you next, Stanley.
Ahoy, hoy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, and you sound pretty good. I know we don't have the cool mic on, but you sound really good. So carry on.
No worries. I really enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a really satisfying conclusion to this two-parter. There were a few moments where I thought, this probably could have fit into last week a little differently. That would have made me enjoy that episode more. But collectively, I really enjoyed them. I thought in this episode we got some amazing character moments, particularly with, Seven defending herself and putting some respect on her name, though he didn't, which was annoying. I really liked the scenes with Vatic. I think we got a satisfying conclusion to her. The scene, I thought they did a really great job with building the tension, like including Ensign No Name was a really nice fake out to me for us to end up losing a character that I really loved. So that was sad and surprising, which was nice to have happen. New Data and Geordi, Deanna really shined in this episode, I thought. And I really loved how they handled Data's death. They didn't disrespect what we've already seen. They made it very clear, that me is resting peacefully. This me is something new, which I thought was really lovely. I had a couple of nitpicks and some things that I thought were a little wonky. The Worf and Deanna stuff I thought was very stilted, and I know what they were going for. To me, it didn't seem like I'm flirting in front of your husband. It was trying to express, like, you've been very helpful to me, but it was in a weird kind of stilted way that I thought could have been handled better. We got a plot reason for why Beverly dipped out. Like my fellow Bev heads, I would have loved more dialogue, scenes with Beverly and other characters. I've got some headcanon now with Jack's, whatever the hell's going on with Jack. Like I can see he's not in control of things. Something has been influencing him his entire life. And so, the plot reason why Deanna was not in their lives is because she would sense there's something dark-sided with that baby if she was there when he was born. So Deanna couldn't have been there, but a little more of that explanation on screen would have been lovely. I do have to respectfully butt heads with my fellow Bev heads, just going with what we've been told. Beverly did dip out, cut off contact, and even after the Troy Rikers lost a child, there was no contact. So I also want more scenes and more dialogue with them, because I know Beverly is better than that, and we haven't seen it. And that's not on the character. And finally, like others have expressed, the Jack stuff is just getting annoying at this point. I'm kind of jazzed to figure out what's going on, but they've been putting it off and putting it off and putting off to this point where I'm like, the reveal at the end of this episode could have been really cool, a satisfying conclusion, and made me really excited for okay, well, what is this going to mean in the last two episodes? And now it's okay, I'm fully expecting to be slightly underwhelmed when we see that at the beginning of the next episode, when I could be jazzed about figuring out what it means and seeing what it means. I do not think it's the paw wraiths. Ken, I love your theory, but for the same reason, I don't think it's that. Like, we've had little hints of Borg this season, and it being some kind of weird new connection. Like, there's a little bit of new, there's a little bit of whatever. But if it's the paw wraiths, if it's whatever you said, I don't even remember like, if I have to have a deep knowledge of the original series to understand what is happening in the last 2 episodes of Star Trek Picard, it's going to be I can see it being beautifully satisfying for you. It's going to be very frustrating for me. So I'm kind of hoping that's not it, but I want, as much as I want you to be right, because I love it when fan theories come true. To me, it's feeling like the Borg, and I'm enjoying us having these fun conversations to figure it out and butt heads.
Very nice. By the way, Norman Buckwald has revealed the true person behind the door. It's me. It's me. I'm behind the door. See you guys next week. My debut in Star Trek.
I thought you were pulling a Time 2006, like it's a mirror. It's each of us are behind the red door.
We're all
behind
the red door.
You get a door. You get a door.
So Hell, you did show up. So Hell, you did show up on a First Contact Day video. So there's no reason to believe why you couldn't be behind the door.
I could be behind.
That was great, by the way. That was great.
Thank you. That was really sweet that they included that. It was. I had not forgotten about the event, but it was really a surprise to see that they used that on First Contact Day. So I was chuffed. Showed my mom. Welcome to the stream, Chris. There's 10 of us today. It's quite a stream today. I love it. Braxton, you're up next.
Ken, I really love your theory. I hope that it's true. I think that I would enjoy that much more than finding out that he's like a Borg or a paw wraith. This episode was solid to me. I did think that the first 35 minutes or so was kind of slow. I was like, what's happening? Like all this drama, like it's not very interesting. And then like the last 20 minutes. I thought like was really exciting. I'm really glad that Data won. R.I.P. Tavine. I just followed that actress on Twitter just last night, dude. And here she is, dude, gone. This is also the last season of Picard, but yeah, like I did enjoy Tavine. So R.I.P. to her. It was cool to see Rafi come back and kick some ass, dude. Like I love, the weapons that she was using. Like I really like Nightwing, and Nightwing, fights with those like two short sticks, and then they can like come together to make a staff. I forget what they're called right now, but they're really really bad. And so I really enjoyed.
They're not bat staffs. I'm sorry.
I feel like he called them something else. Like it sounds like something Asian, dude. But I'll look at that another time and like let you know. But I really enjoyed seeing Rafi come through and kick ass. And I really enjoyed seeing Vadic get her comeuppance. I totally thought that she was gonna like float into those engines and be like disintegrated, but then she just like slammed up against like the chassis of the ship and just like broke into a million pieces. But I'm totally not into this Jack story. I'm just trying to get through. I would really enjoy if Ken's theory was true. I think that I would really enjoy that ending of and it's just like way too drawn out. Like I thought we were gonna get it last week, and so this week, like I was up at like 5:45, and I was like, this. I woke up at 5:45 to watch this trash. Like it's slow. They're not giving me what I want, and then we got all the way to the end, and I was like, "Ooh, we're gonna get it." And then
they teased the Jack revelation at the end of 2 episodes. So like, if it's not answered in episode 9, I think people are gonna get upset.
Like I felt like the show, like it was like meh, and then it got exciting, and then it let me down at the end. This was a solid episode for me.
Very cool. Kevin, go ahead next.
So I did not like this episode. I think I'm probably gonna have to. Don't throw tomatoes at me, but I'll have
Kevin,
to
you are
explain
my
why.
friend.
Yeah.
Thank
I did not
goodness.
like
I
it.
felt like I was so alone with this.
No. I
Woo,
so wanted
all right.
to jump in and give you a standing ovation, and I think I'm gonna go
Whew,
in
all right.
harder. The first thing is, can women be the smartest people in the room at any point in the show? Is that allowed? Like, how dumb has Seven been compared to who she has always been? The other part is, it feels like I'm watching people play with their toys. Like, there's good interactions between characters, but how they get there and how they leave don't make much sense. Like, Worf is just on the ship. How? Worf has a cloak ship. How? They forgot that they had a cloaking device until the end of this episode, which they could have used last episode. Huh? Everyone's trapped because Vadic has control of the entire ship, but Picard and crew walk over to Geordi because they need to. Like, there were just too many of those types of things where the interaction that happened after that craziness that made no sense was cool, but how, like, Raffi played with her swords, got it, but no one thought to shoot her. Like, it was a whole lot of that, and I think for me, this episode came like really at a deficit because the last episode, we literally had Picard and Beverly deciding to commit a war crime and failing, not choosing not to do it.
Sorry.
They failed because their guns didn't work properly, and we're just moving. Like, Picard, a character we've known for 30 years, to be the moral center, to have stopped a genocide with Hugh, has, like, so I look at this episode and it was a lot of vignettes, like even the Data thing. We can't pretend we didn't see that coming. We knew Data when they explained that body had multiple people back when they were on Daystrom Station. Every single viewer knew that they were going to merge into a new being. Drawing that out and pretending we didn't know it was going to happen, and then doing it in a way that was so predictable, but then taking steps that made no sense, just really bothered me. I felt like I said, it felt like a lot of nostalgia for something that I loved when I was 8, and we're playing with the characters, but not caring enough about the internal logic of the show and good storytelling. Like, we live, I said this just earlier, we live in the age of like Lovecraft Country and Andor, and like it's not just great shows like The Sopranos. Every genre has great television, and this episode in particular was promised to be great television. It was good. It was good. So that's how I felt about it.
I don't understand.
silent.
What are Vadic's minions? Are they changelings or are they solids? Because Worf stabs one of them and it just falls. It's weird. That is inconsistent.
It's been wildly
The power of the
things.
weapons and the
It
enemies
has.
and how powerful they are is wildly inconsistent. That's
Vadic
the
can't be
biggest
dead.
irritation, I think.
This is why I
in my
She
chuckled
got sucked
earlier
into
because,
space.
like,
And we've seen changelings. Like, don't we remember that episode in DS9 with that other new changeling, that the episode starts with him flying as some type of space creature, getting into the ship and greeting Odo, and then it moves on from there. But now Vadic's dead because she got spaced. Like, you could tell that they decided which plot points they wanted to hit, and they didn't care about how they got there, and that's what bothered me.
I think I can help with the Vadic thing. The Vadic thing. She was clearly described as like a different type of changeling in the episode where they were describing her backstory. But I agree that. But I agree, yes. But she's like the fleshy shapeshifter, which I don't know how else to describe it.
They're slightly more solid changelings.
It turned my stomach, and I said it. So, but the minions, I agree that has like been really, really ignored. The only thing that I keep clinging to, and I'm annoyed that I'm clinging to it, is a single line of dialogue from Riker where he says, "How much of that goose shit did they pour into you?" So it's like, okay, so the the minions like have changeling attributes? Like I don't know. Like it was something. It doesn't explain it, but it was something.
Paddock also describes them as my misshapen friends. I think, again, it would have been nice to maybe see some more of this, but I think there is definitely supporting dialogue that they are changelings, one, but that they were made into changelings somehow. And she even describes how she can go into the Great Link and give the power, but the sacrifice is that you have a shorter lifespan and stuff like that. So I have to kind of go back and kind of collect these thoughts, because those are really good points you brought up, Kevin. Chris, you want to tell us your? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So I was going to say, I don't know that she created the other changelings. Remember, she said that she was trapped with 9 of her friends.
But they're not the 9. I don't think those are the 9s. I think 2 of them were. One of them was the guy in whatchamacallit, the transporter. The other guy was on the engineer, the transporter engineer guy. That's just based on looking at the ones that have. But it's just I'm just basing that on the ones that actually look like traditional changelings that can actually change, as opposed to wearing masks, because they can't fully change. But Kevin,
been 7.
like I shouldn't have to explain it to you. I agree with that part.
Yeah. Like,
what we really need is another scene in 10 Forward to explain it all.
Right. Well, I mean, it could
during a crisis.
I'm still waiting for Beverly to go drink in 10 Forward. My goodness, that woman needs a drink.
If you believe the line that says no changeling can harm another, and then Vadic was shooting up these minions, then that would argue that perhaps these minions weren't in fact changelings.
It's crazy that we're the end of.
What if they were actually Gru's minions that she poured goo into?
Well, let's
really cool.
Go ahead.
I didn't realize that like this conversation is the first time that I even considered that those other minions aren't changelings in the same way, because the show never said it. I just thought, oh, they chose masks, because why not? Because changelings can be anything. Like the show isn't telling us what an audience needs to know. Like you have to go online or read a story or follow one of the showrunners in order to be able to follow the show, and I don't think that's a good thing.
No.
In the last episode, Shaw shoots one of them in the head and like the chest, and it falls, and then it fakes its it pops up behind him. It's like, and Worf impales one of them, and it's like, it's dead.
But
that was
they may still explain it.
To make sure Worf was vaporizing all the dead bodies, like to make sure.
At least he was doing that.
Yeah. So
that's why I'm pissed. This season has made me a Worf fan, and that is so frustrating.
What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?
Amen, Stanley. Amen.
I agree. I feel like I've lost who I am.
He's still a bad dad. He's still a bad dad. It's fine.
I don't know who I am anymore.
Chris, welcome to the stream. I'm glad you tucked the kiddos in. Tell us what you thought of this episode and some highlights.
Well, I think I have to respond to all the changeling madness just for a second, because my theory might be that the reason they get stopped by being hit by a phaser or being stabbed is because they have replicated all these internal organs. And so that damages them for a moment, and then they regenerate, goo back together or whatever. So that's why, like, those bad guys, they're dropped for a moment, and then they pop back up behind Shaw, right?
Okay.
That makes sense to me. But I agree with all of you. We shouldn't be having to work this hard. Luckily, it's not essential to the plot, I think. But it's still 2 more episodes left, and every episode's had huge revelations. So I am ready for Jack for sure. I was thinking about, and I was tweeting that the reveal of the burn in Discovery or Species 10C hit very differently for me. 10C worked because the reveal was so imaginative and a fresh idea, awesome stuff about communication. Cool, was worthwhile. The reveal for the burn didn't work for me. It worked like figuratively. Pain and separation causes hurt, but literally didn't work in the story. So the Jack thing, the reveal, is either gonna make it all worthwhile or just gonna be like, oh. Mm-hmm. So I'm really hoping behind that red door
it's a risk, but risk is our business.
Whatever
Exactly.
is behind the
Imagine.
red door, Deanna is very much afraid of it. She's
Whatever is
terrified.
behind that red door better be on this chat right now. So it
It's
better be you.
it's
better be
actually
you.
the ghost of Loxana Troy that's behind the door, and that's why
Oh,
she's
no.
freaking out. I'm sorry. that
Only
was-
other answer I
that was like
tolerate.
the worst.
Wouldn't she be afraid of Jack the Ripper? I think
It
she
would
be.
it would make sense if it was Loxana
I love.
with Deanna being like, "There's a great darkness surrounding."
Yeah,
him."
that's right. It was Loxana.
But
She
he
was,
said,
she was always, every time she showed up to the Enterprise, Deanna was always like, "No." It would be hilarious,
That tracks.
but also very sad because I like Trev has mentioned in the past. I would love an acknowledgement of her passing on the show, and not in this manner.
the interesting detail to me was that Deanna said that whatever it is ancient. So
And
I
very
think that's what
weak.
she said, right?
Ancient and
She's an ancient and weak.
It's
Yep.
Red Jack.
We-
It's Red
All
Jack.
of the theories are ancient. That is not evidence for any of us. It's evidence for all of us.
There you go.
What are you trying to say, Stan?
Well, the Borg are ancient. The Pod Wraiths are
Yeah, it's
ancient.
true.
Yeah.
It's
That's
true.
true.
Whatever
That's
Ken was
the point.
talking about is ancient.
Red Jack.
Red Jack.
Red
yeah,
Jack.
I'm not trying to be glib. I truly
Picard's
didn't know until you
ancient,
said
I
it.
guess.
So now I'm not.
What if it's something entirely new?
Yeah, that's a
I
The,
mean,
possibility.
the American West in the
If
1800s.
it's
is
not
ancient.
a member berry, then I'm out. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I
It has to be
I don't-
nostalgic in some way. or
right. I
it
don't
won't be
think they
worth
can
it.
make it something totally new now. I agree with PJ. If it's something totally new, then why are you dragging this out?
I think
so long?
PJ was being
Yeah.
sarcastic.
Right.
Just FYI.
But I also think that
No, I don't know.
Can I just point out?
obscure
A
as
couple.
well.
A couple
Go ahead,
of
CJ.
people who were reviewing this episode early on today, two people in particular, seem to have taken Deanna's words literally when she said that she slept with the changeling and he was good in bed and bad at pizza.
Oh yeah.
This
I was like,
drives
no, that
me
was a
wild.
joke. That was a joke.
She
It wasn't serious.
This drives me wild. This is one of the reasons why I hopped into the comments, because sometimes people will ask questions and I don't want to interrupt the people speaking. But
Very
like
nice.
there are things that happen in dialogue that sometimes it's very easy to miss, and I totally get it. I'm not trying to be one of those like hyper fan dicks, but she made it very clear in her very next sentence. I knew they weren't imposters right away.
Right.
Like it drives me up a wall when people like I feel like they choose to ignore what they hear.
Mm-hmm.
Like rant over.
Maybe Betazoid
think-
sarcasm is just different.
But Riker knew, so it's not like.
Yeah, Riker was also
I mean,
like, haha,
Riker was
just
like,
me,
haha,
right?
just like me. Yeah.
It's
So.
true.
You know,
But do you
Stan,
think that
you
their
brought me
viewers that view
to.
it like the Bible, like they view everything as literal, like this is sacred text. So she said it, so it's true. She slept.
This whole season has only been 7 days.
exactly.
It kind of has, right? Hasn't it? It's only been like 7 days or so.
It takes
Chris,
place
what were you saying?
in less than a week, I think. Yeah.
Stan brought us to the Deanna Riker scene, and that's the only thing that I had the biggest problem with in this episode. I felt like it was exposition dump explaining their rift, and it didn't seem authentic to me because of what we saw on Nepenthe. And I know people can put a front on, you know, when they're excited to be.
Yeah, but
see
now we
Jean-Luc.
know that it's possible that she was also using her Betazoid powers to make Riker feel that way. So what
Right.
we saw in Nepenthe may have been part of that, like, you know, thing. I didn't mean to
just-
interrupt you, but yeah.
No, you're
They
fine.
do kind of retcon that kind of family dynamic. Like it seems like they're really happy there in the first season. Then like now we're discovering that maybe they weren't so much. But they deal with it in a comedic way. So I guess yeah.
I don't know. I don't have words yet to describe, but something just felt off in that exchange to me and inauthentic. Maybe it's that Deanna did something pretty horrible, actually. You know, going in, kind of like what Jack can do to people and kind of go in and take over.
Which
someone
is-
else's free
Which
will.
is interesting why they brought that up, because I think that will relate to maybe something with Jack. I thought I was just like completely into that scene. Like I felt like they were pretty natural, and I love on the Ready Room, Jonathan. I didn't know about this, and I wonder if I wish Sir Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden had more license to do this or had more guts to do this, but both Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis, in TNG and Encounter at Farpoint, they established that they were lovers before and like all that. And then the writers just, Marina Sirtis says the writers just kind of like dropped it and ignored it, but we kept the flame going, which I think is really lovely. And then they finally caught on and were like, oh yeah, this is cool. Let's do this. And I guess,
So
they
I can kind of comment on with Patrick and Gates. They kind of did because a lot of because Gates was gone and then she came back. A lot of those scripts were not written specifically for Crusher, and so that's why it was a little off. But there were scenes that were not written specifically for them to have chemistry, but then they just decided to do it, like the Ready Room scene in Cause and Effect. It's a very cute, very nice Picard and Crusher scene, but it wasn't written like that. But they ran with it. So I think they kind of did a little bit. It just got pushed more to the side because of the absence of Gates and then having that whole two different doctors and different scripts and stuff like that. So I think that's why I made it harder.
Chris, I also felt like that scene, like as much as it impacted me, what I spoke about earlier, it was conveniently brief. It was a lot of, he gives a line, she gives a line back. There was a lot, like it was just like, let's wrap this up. I think I excused it because, like warp drive and turbo lifts, that conversation happened at the speed of plot. Like it was like, okay, we have 7 minutes, quick, resolve your issues. I would have watched an entire episode of the two of them in that cell figuring that out. But I get what you're saying.
I think you're right, Trev, and I think it felt like an exposition dump because it was just dumped. I love the concept; it's really fascinating, and exploring it further would have helped. So thank you.
It's just weird. It's weird that we got exposition of feeling. That's not normal. Like normally it's let's move a plot point. Instead, it was let's move and resolve these issues. The other thing too that I excused was the longer you're together, the quicker the shorthand develops, and the less you have to actually say verbally to express. Particularly if one of you is an empath, I would imagine. But when I was watching them, kind of when Jonathan and Marina talked about the fact that they have sort of laid these little, planted these seeds all along, you could kind of see the shorthand in their eyes. They were sort of playing it like they were reading each other's minds, pun intended and not.
And full disclosure, I had to listen to this while driving to work today because I missed my alarm. So I didn't get to see their performance too, which hopefully will help when I watch it.
I think it will help actually, because when you see how like Riker is looking at her with that love in his eyes, and he calls her Mzadi, and then she's like, "I should never taught you that word," and like, all
I
that
loved
stuff.
all that.
Like, yeah. When you see it performed, I think it might hit differently. I'd be curious to know. I hope you'll follow up about it. By the way, I haven't caught all of them. Now I'm like on a mission. I read a couple of your Shaw micro treks, and they're so genius. So I hope maybe you'll flesh out some of these Beverly Troy ones. I did appreciate that Kestra got a mention. I personally wish that we knew for sure that she was with Captain Crandall, but just the fact that they're not worried tells me that she's okay or whatever.
I heard about this. I can answer that one if it's helpful.
Yes.
So apparently Terry has said in an interview that they had a line. It's one of those things like we knew that people are going to wonder, we should have something in there. And then it felt clunky. So they ended up cutting it, which I'll reveal what they said in a moment. But I feel like, okay, that kind of makes sense because of what you just said, because they aren't freaking out about her. We can infer that she's safe. And
so
by
he's
cutting out
babysitting
this
her.
line, she should be. That was I was going to say later. One thought, then the other. ADHD kicking in.
You got this, Stanley. You got this.
Sorry.
Thank you, Jesse. No.
I'm an ADHD mom, so I'll be your coach.
I got this.
You got
Thank
this.
you, everyone. I feel so supported now. Thank you all. So them cutting this also gives them a lot of freedom with this character in the future, should they choose to, should we get Star Trek Legacy, etc. But apparently Kestra's at Starfleet Academy. There was a line that like, I'm happy that she's safe at the Academy.
I
But-
just said in the ready room.
Unless she's a changeling now, but
I was going to say, I don't know that line would have assured me she was safe.
Well,
Exactly.
I know. Like,
the fact that they've said we should talk to Janeway or Chancellor Roll, that tells me that they like the changelings they're worried about the fleet, they're not worried about the academy. So I'm choosing to believe that she's safe at the academy. And I
I'll allow it.
the Captain Crandall of it all, I never felt comfortable with. It's a little creepy Uncle Bad touch to me, but
Yes. Oh my gosh!
Oh my
Thank
God.
you.
Agreed.
Thank
Like,
you.
why is she
Dang.
texting this captain? And like maybe
This
this
old
captain
man.
is only
Okay.
like 17 and she what was she was 14 in that episode.
It
I
sounds
think.
like he's
14,
retired. I
15.
think Captain Crandall's
No, I
probably
think
in
he's
his
an
70s
old
or something
man.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
When
an
I
old
was-
man.
Sure,
When
I'll
I
go
was
mentor
15,
her.
He's
I
O'Compin.
had a ton of geriatric friends.
There you
and
go.
They were all very nice. and
Yes,
none
yes,
of
yes,
them-
yes,
Mentor
also it's-
figures.
Yes,
He's
sure.
texting them behind
Sure.
and
But
back.
I will just say in the current landscape of people trying to ban drag and trans kids just existing, it is more often than not someone in a church or a
Yes,
close family
that's
member. So let's not get it twisted. Captain Crandall felt
Uncle-
weird to me.
Uncle Crandall would sound
Uncle-
weird, yes.
Yeah, it was weird.
Captain
Or
Anyway,
Admiral Crandall.
So-
Admiral,
so-
he's a badmiral. Yeah.
Yes.
He's a captain. He's a captain. I don't think he's a Starfleet captain though. I think he.
But something I felt
No, he's not.
missing in this that
No.
also
That makes
came
it
up in this
worse.
ADHD clusterfuck was Soji. Like, how lovely would it have been in this next generation to have new Data being able to connect with old Data's daughter, who is also kind of his daughter. Like, I know that there's a lot of people frustrated about what's going on with Data. I think we're getting a really new, interesting way of talking about humanity with this isn't Data, this is a new Data, but it's kind of Data. And like there are a lot of layers there that will be fun to explore and talk about. But we only have 2 episodes left of this series, so it's not going to happen. But having Soji involved at this, it would have been too much to try and handle. I totally get why they went the direction that they went.
Yeah.
But with the Troy Rikers, with the Alondra and Sydney's, like having Soji along would have made a whole lot of sense to me.
Did you notice how they boxed Lal?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
Go on.
she was mentioned, and then all of a sudden, like,
Yeah, why
I'm
mention her?
concerned about. Yeah, I really do not like how they're portraying women in this show. Like, for me, DS9 was into feminism. I think the relationship between Dax and Kira was amazing. How many times have women on this show spoken to each other? How many times, like, and I said this before, how many times have women in the show been the person that is listened to, the person with the best idea, the person with the most smarts? The fact that Seven is playing second fiddle to Jack just doesn't sit right with me.
Interesting.
Well, I do
Jesse,
agree.
What's that test called? Is it the Bechdel test?
Bechdel.
The
Bechdel test.
Bechdel test. Mm-hmm.
Have you been tracking the season? How can you support or refute Kevin? Because I haven't been tracking it as well.
For me, this is a Michelle question. Actually, she's the
Oh,
one that
okay.
keeps track of it. She does the screaming goats and the Bechdel test. That's her job.
Nice.
So I will confer
No,
with
Kevin,
her
come
prior.
to the Crusher convo and we could find out.
I think there's
We will totally
actually
find
only
out.
been one conversation between 2 women that wasn't about a man, and that was Seven talking to Sydney. And even
And it
then,
was also, I think,
Jordy was
I think,
mentioned. But
Troy
like, that
and
is as
Crusher
close as it's gotten.
in this episode. Didn't they have a moment at the table?
They had a moment for 5 seconds, and then
For
2
5
seconds for
seconds,
Deanna
in a
and
room where everyone
Raffi.
else was-
And then it
about
shifted. And then it shifted to talking about Jack.
And then it shifted.
Exactly.
I mean,
That was another thing I wanted to mention. I
should
didn't
Jack
like.
have been Jill, guys? Is that what we're saying?
Well, actually, let's go further and say,
and then
would
Stand by Your
Shaw-
Man, please.
Sorry.
Would we
Oh,
permit
sorry.
Shaw to be the personality that he is if he a she? would he be viewed as, that curmudgeon that we love with the exact same character traits, but a woman? And I doubt
No,
it.
that's a
There's
great point.
something
Oh, that's a great
off
question.
about this show. There's
I would
something
also-
like
I would only challenge that everyone loves him, because I don't.
I feel like Shaw is like a male Reno,
Same.
right? Like,
Yeah,
from Discovery,
I
like,
find
there's similar kind of vibe there, and we love Reno.
No, this guy's malicious. Like, how many times does Seven have to tell him her name? And
right.
like
That's true.
Yeah, he
That's
definitely
true.
should have gotten it by now.
We've had this
yeah.
conversation.
Reno's not a bigot, she's just funny.
Like, there's
True.
something off. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something off.
Sorry,
Well, I do
Shaw
think
to me
there's-
is just
I do
food
think there's
now,
something up.
so
Yeah.
The
I
Rafi
do-
Deanna thing I thought was a little odd. Did anybody else think so? Before he became Old Man Picard recluse, Jean-Luc was promoted, worked with Rafi. I would have presumed that Rafi and Deanna at least knew about each other, if not had met before today. So I would have loved her like, oh, you're Rafi. It's so nice to finally meet you. Like, it would have cut the tension in a cute little way. I thought it was a little odd that they didn't know of each other based on what we've seen before. So it felt a little odd to me. It works just well enough, but it would have been a nice nod to. I know that not everybody loves seasons 1 and 2. I do not love seasons 1 and 2, but a nod to what's come before is what this entire season is founded on. So it felt weird to pick and choose that way.
To that point,
needed-
to your point about 1 and 2, Stanley, a lot of people some people were commenting that whole conversation between Riker and Troy and Nepenthe about how it was a bad idea and how we shouldn't be here and what are we doing here? I hate it. You hate it. That was, in theory, sort of a weird nod to saying, wow, we didn't like Picard season 1 and 2 either.
I don't know, but I thought it was
I think
funny
it was.
because they were like they
Yeah.
both didn't realize they thought the other one loved it there, and then when they name all the reasons, like the screaming birds in the morning and the groaning
I like that.
the groaning floorboards, it's like it's a very judgmental foyer. That back and forth was really good, and I didn't think it was like a diss. It didn't come across to me as a diss on Nepenthe. I was like, yeah, they both want to kind of be young again. Really, she wants to move to the city. They want to have more of a life.
it
Yeah.
feels like
it
they
felt like
got
a diss of
stuck.
their best episode. Like, I think Nepenthe was the best written episode,
Yep.
best acted episode of the
Yeah.
entire series. And for them to make that dig about that specific episode, I thought was targeted. Like,
See, I didn't
there's
think
no
it
way
was
that
a
was
dig.
I think
accidental.
that I see it as more like they're finally growing past the grief, because remember they were there for Thad, like
Yes.
that they were there for him. They weren't there for themselves. They stayed because Kestra was
weren't
all
living.
into it. Yeah, they weren't living. Yeah, that Kestra
I think
was
that's
all into it,
in-universe.
and stuff
And,
like that.
and now if Kestra's in Starfleet, which they didn't mention,
there's no
obviously, in the
reason for
episode,
them
but-
to stay in Nepenthe anymore.
Mhm.
They're just staying there for their grief. So I think maybe that
And the
was
bunny
kind of-
corn.
and the bunny.
corn's
Well, they
And the
hate
bunny
it. They
corn.
hate it all. Like
Yeah,
They hate it all,
woodpeckers,
Yeah.
the
Did you cut out
woodpeckers.
the venom
Venom.
sac?
Yes.
So, Hill, can I
Yeah.
do a me thing really fast?
Yes, please. Yes.
And it's not to police language, but it's to change the way we feel about something. You never move past grief. You learn how to carry it with you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Well, didn't they? She made a comment about finally walking through that door. Like, I don't think they were ready to walk into that door because if they left, they were almost saying goodbye to Thad,
Mhm.
right? So they had to be in that right place of mind to be like, we're moving on. They're always going to miss their son, but now they're going to try and find to live with that grief in a different way.
And
That's
Riker
kind of how
also-
I took it.
Riker also talks about when he was in that situation in episodes 3 and 4 and how bleak it was, and when he came out of it, all he thought of was his wife's face. And it was kind of this thing where, when something really traumatic or a near-death situation happens to you, it can create like this great appreciation for life. And I think the conversation about Nepenthe that follows, in the comedic tone that it is really significant to them moving on with their lives, and not moving past their grief or getting over the grief, but learning to live with it, and saying goodbye to Nepenthe is like a first step, I suppose.
It's
They
also
got-
what
they got
Nepenthe
stuck.
means.
They got stuck in Nepenthe. They went to Nepenthe for a purpose. They experienced their loss, and then they got stuck there, and they couldn't figure out how to move forward because they never even talked about it.
Yep.
And then when they had the conversation, it was like, oh my God, you too. Like, I actually appreciated. I do pick up on what Kevin's saying, that I can see how he saw it that way. I just didn't. But I totally get where you're coming from. But if it helps, for me, it was acknowledgement that they had gotten stuck in a place in their grief, and Nepenthe was just symbolic of that.
Yeah.
I wish they had said that, because then
Yeah.
it could have been both a respect of all of the work that everyone that made Nepenthe, which was amazing, and one of the few like absolutely amazing episodes put into it, while also talking about that was what they needed at that time, and they needed to move on for to heal, to move forward in life. And
Yeah, I
it could have
agree,
had-
Kevin.
It was a choice to write it this way.
Yeah, I agree with Kevin. I feel like it could have been a little more, like, it could have landed a little differently. But I will say, I am primed for the worst kind of people on the internet to catch those kinds of things. But I don't think Terry Metalis would disrespect Michael Chabon and Akiva Goldsman that way, if for no other reason than career protection. But also, he just doesn't seem to be that type of guy. Like,
the self-preservation of it all. Yeah.
Well, but also
Protection. I love that.
Also, there is just nothing that I have seen to suggest that he would even do that anyway. But I do agree with you, Kevin. I think it could have been there could have been like another line or two. That's one reason why I think the pre-Worf Deanna Riker scenes, if they had put that into the last episode, I think it would have flowed a little bit better. It would have given last week's episode a little bit more heft that would have worked really well for me. One of the reasons I didn't like it, because it felt stilted. But it occurs to me like Nepenthe is a reference to one of the classic works.
We have it here. Nepenthe 1, a potion used by the ancients to induce forgetfulness of pain or sorrow. Number 2, something capable of causing oblivion of grief or suffering.
And it came out
okay, but the thing that this is missing is it's from it's not the Gilliam. It's
like
Homer's
the Iliad or
Odyssey.
the Odyssey. Okay,
it's from the Odyssey.
Oh,
Yeah. It was a drug in the Odyssey to stave off grief. It was, and if I recall correctly, it was like Trev was talking about. It was a stopgap measure. It wasn't actually like holding on to the grief and moving forward. It was like trying to shove it away, which is not something that works for anybody who's grieving. Anybody knows.
Speaking of Odysseys, I have to embark on mine, so I apologize. I got to run.
I'll be the crazy version of Trevor tonight.
Wonderful.
On the salon.
That's right. Sohail is my stunt double tonight at the salon. So thank you, Sohail, and thanks for having me. And wonderful seeing all of you.
A quick rating for this episode.
Kevin, it was lovely. Quick rating. I will give this one a 9 out of 10 bunny corn sausage pizzas.
Nice.
Okay.
All right. I'll beam myself out. Bye.
Bonjour.
Yeah, I'm going to peace out myself because I have to go get my mom's notes for Crusher Combo, and then I'll start it.
In 30 minutes, you're starting.
In 30 minutes, I'm starting it. So
we'll wrap this up real quick, but Chris was trying to say something earlier. Have a good night, Jesse. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, and your rating.
Oh,
real quick.
Rating 5 Jack Red Eyes.
Out of 5.
Going right out of 5. Yeah. No. Bad.
Gotcha.
Dang it.
Red
5.
I'm going to be booted off of Crusher Combo.
I'm going to keep muting you every time. Okay. Bye, guys.
We'll see you later in a few minutes. Chris, you're going to say something, I think.
Yeah. Back to the the Riker Troy conversation. You know how I thought it was a information dump, but this conversation has helped me appreciate it a lot more. I don't know if I would want more explanation connecting it back to Nepenthe and that whole thing that we've just unraveled, because that's kind of the part of the consumer in art, in literature, to do that kind of work, not to try and figure out what these henchmen are, because that's not really important, right? But delving into character and motivation and theme and how that
We
connects.
need to know exactly who the henchmen are, where
We
they
do?
came from, when they were born, where they live.
When were they recruited?
It's vital to the
Social
human
insurance
condition. We gotta know it.
passport number.
But Chris, you're right. I do.
Did they fill out their paperwork?
I do think it's more rewarding when you're engaged that way.
English teacher here. I mean, that's the bias.
That's the English teacher moment. I like it. I love it. Guys,
no lie to that was my favorite scene in the episode.
Oh, nice.
Like the two of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any other scene we want to talk? Because I think we covered just about everything. Like we've talked about Data, we've talked about Vatic, we talked about. Is there anything in particular anyone is passionate about and wants to talk about? Marcelo, I'm sorry for shushing you when you laughed out loud, but I was like a little startled by that. And so yeah, you can laugh anytime you want. I apologize. But I was like, are you laughing at Stanley? No, you were laughing with him. I get it now.
I take all laughing at me as with me. I am unfazed regardless.
Yeah, I was laughing at him. Yeah.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
With him. Sorry, with him. Sorry, I said that wrong.
I thought that we talked about it, but the Vatic scene on the bridge, when she was basically doing the equivalent of the guy with the bat in Walking Dead. What is his name? Where he's walking up down Negan, yeah. And I really was very, very, very scared for Trev because I thought his all-time favorite guy was going to go away, and I'd be like, oh no.
Daddy Murray.
Yeah, Daddy Murray. Yeah,
he is a daddy. He's a dad today.
He's a daddy.
Yeah.
True, Daddy Murray. That scene was so intense.
That scene was intense, and I loved Jerry Ryan. You know, it's one of those things where talk about what they do for the plot and for the story, right? You had Shaw and Seven having this big conversation, and then as soon as they're done, then Vatic just continues she turns and continues her conversation. Like Vatic couldn't hear the two of them talking. It's a traditional drama thing. It's like, all right, I'm only 2 feet away from them, but I'm not going to hear them just because.
Maybe she hears them. She just doesn't care.
I think Vatic is a messy bitch. I think she wanted the gossip. I think she wanted it. Yeah. She wanted to know every little detail because then she could weave it into her symphony. Goodness. Symphony. I've had one beverage. And I
thought it was Plummer's best performance out of the season. And
it was excellent.
It just got to the point where I was like, she needs to go. And then just like, get off my bridge. She's like, fucking solid. See you later.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to add to that was Seven was the real captain in this episode. Shaw was like, just let it happen. Like, don't worry about it. Like, maybe he was right about, like, she should have blown the turbolith. But I loved her line. It's like, we're not trading lives. And that's where she draws the line. Like, I felt she felt more like a traditional Starfleet captain in this episode than he did.
But he was willing to sacrifice himself.
Yes. But
you guys were all
briefly.
at the same time. Let's start with Chris. What were you saying?
I'm sorry. I love that Shaw moment because he's explaining and showing that he's actually heroic. He was willing to sacrifice himself for the good of the ship. That is a captain, and like it's showing that he's more than just sarcasm and the one-liners and the bigotry. Like there is something valuable in him to teach Seven in that moment, and so I'm looking forward for more of that.
Kevin?
So for me, it brings up that line from Community, which has become a meme. Like, it goes, I can excuse the racism. For me, it's like, I just can't, like, Shaw's barely on the bridge. He's barely captained anything ever in the 8 episodes that we've seen.
This poor captain has had, like, an admiral, a captain, a bunch of commanders, and like
Yeah.
Commodore.
he's like a lot, but
he wasn't even on the bridge. But when this whole stuff started, like so, like he did. His speech to Seven was right in that she should have made that sacrifice, and that's good. But just like I'm having a hard time getting over Picard and Beverly from last episode. Who you are is, for me anyway, an amalgam of all you've done, and he's been like a not just a jerk, but a horrible human being for too long. And I think last episode they kind of have tainted Beverly and Picard for me. So I'm going into the last couple episodes of the show, going, I don't think that I'm feeling the way that the writers want me to feel because of the choices that they've made a lot of these characters make.
If Star Trek's about us, how we become better, it's also about how we maintain that better state. And I feel like this current generation of Star Trek is about the maintaining part, because like TNG's era, they were good, they arrived, and now it's since Dominion War, it's okay, how do we stay good, and how do we define what good is? And maybe not everything is good that we thought was good.
But
so like, I can see Shaw can become better and grow, and Beverly and Picard. I hope there is some reflection and discussion about that decision and growth from it.
I think we're going to see Shaw grow because it's clear that they've hammered in that he has these failings, but he's at his core good. So I'm sure they'll get there. But I don't think that they understood what they did to Beverly and Picard when they made them try to be war criminals.
I think they did. I think they did.
Go
ahead,
episode to talk about it, because if they haven't acknowledged that even
I don't think they needed to talk about it. They just want to kill that woman. I don't think they need to talk about anything. Look,
I think that oh, go ahead, Marcelo.
No, I mean, look, Picard and Beverly for a better part of 30 years have done everything by the book. But as you get older, you are constantly put in situations where you are constantly tested to make the best decision you can. And I think in that moment, they made a choice. And although the choice didn't track with the people that they are, they thought it was the right thing to do at the time. And I don't necessarily know if a conversation of them talking about it is going to make me like, I don't agree that the show has made them into people that I don't recognize. I just think that they're people put in uncomfortable situations and they have to deal with that. But I don't. Yeah.
I have two challenges to that. First is they said that they were doing the wrong thing, so they acknowledged that it was wrong.
Right.
The second is the test of who you are isn't what you do when things are easy. It's what you do when things are difficult. So the fact that they've lived their entire, all of these decades doing the good thing under easy circumstances, that's never the test of who you are. Who you are, how you show up, and what you're made of is revealed to you and to the rest of the world when you are tested. That was a massive test that they didn't slip and fall on. They actively chose to fail. And I can't believe that our Jean-Luc Picard did that, and I'm so scared that it's going to go unacknowledged.
This is the next Tuvix debate, like the big thing that we'll be
like
talking about for 20 years.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, so what I have to say that while I agree with you, Kevin, a couple things. One is that when you're challenged, what you said is exactly right. Here you have these two characters. They are one. The idea of conflict has been lifted in Star Trek Picard, unlike it was never the same in the writing of Star Trek The Next Generation. You're able to play these characters a little bit differently than you were able to through all the years of The Next Generation, even the movies, right? That's one. Two, you're right. They acknowledge, he charges his phaser and she says, I don't know, my moral compass is slipping, and they're ready to do that thing. They didn't actually do it until they only tried when the screens dropped and she started to get away. If the screens hadn't dropped, would they have gone through
happened? Yeah, we actually don't know.
So I think that there's that, and then the other thing is here you have two parents, right? She's threatening their kid, and a parent will do anything. I'm not a parent, but I know a parent will do anything, right?
I wouldn't commit a war
So-
crime for my child. I wouldn't.
What was
Not
the
a war
war
crime, though.
What's the war crime? Like,
Okay, so
Kevin,
here-
I'm with
so-
you at the.
Where is
I'm
that
with you
coming
about
from?
The conflict,
No, so
but killing
Where is that
one
coming from?
individual is not the war
It's
crime.
not a war crime.
Let me explain that. You got someone that is captured.
Yeah.
Committing to kill them while you have a prisoner is a war crime. It is.
But they didn't. They didn't
But
do it.
They didn't kill
they
her.
didn't succeed in their attempt. Is
No, they
different
didn't. They
than
didn't
them-
attempt it. They
I-
did
I'm
not
not a
attempt it
parent,
until
but
the
I
screens
would-
dropped.
I'm not a parent, but I would commit a war crime for my children. I would die for my children. I would like do whatever it takes to make sure they go. And if they hate me for it, that's better because they're alive. That's
Yeah, they're
my
alive.
mentality. Yeah.
Let's think of it a different way. Like, I have 2 kids, and if someone breaks into my house and is a clear and present threat to them, and maybe I have them held in a room for a moment, but I don't know how long I can secure them while I'm waiting for police. You know, there's a situation that I have to make a decisions there, and luckily,
It's
like,
funny we're
they
talking
weren't-
about last week's episode.
Yeah.
I would challenge that because that's not, I think a more similar analogy would be if you were the cops and you had the person in jail. Because at the time they made the choice, they did not know the jail doors would open.
But they
So
know
if you were a
that
cop,
there's so much.
Yeah, they do actually discuss,
uncertainty.
like Beverly
were-
says, like we can't. Beverly says we're stuck in a really hard situation right now because she's super calm, she's super relaxed. Beverly's like scared that if Vatic
Well,
escapes,
But remember,
if Vatic escapes, there's no other thing. So I do think
And-
that they.
but
Go
Picard
ahead, sir.
said
It's possible that
that's the
she's
last-
in control
you're
of the
not gonna get
situation
any-
too.
Wait,
No, but
wait,
so
I
let's
hear-
move it. Let's move it to this. Let's move it to this
Hold
week's
on, hold on.
episode.
Guys, I'm using my moderator privilege here.
Uh,
Kevin, what were you saying? Sorry.
But then Picard says, we're not going to get any more out of her. And he charges the phaser. That was the last thing he said. The choice wasn't because of fear. The choice was utility. That matters. That makes it material.
Well, so, but Kevin, what about this? What about this week? You know, they sent Jack to the bridge with the thermal detonator. They knew that they were going to evacuate the bridge, you know, open the bridge and blow Vatic out, and whoever else was on the bridge with Vatic. So, how is that different from the scene last week?
Okay, so that's really easy. So, if you look, the reason that we actually have war crimes is they're talking about rules of engagement. So, if you are in an engagement, the rules
can I
of
just
war
say one thing?
allow you to have combat. But we're talking about a prisoner last week versus an active fight this week, and that's the difference.
Okay. Can I just say one thing? I don't think there's a denial anymore that they would have committed a war crime, but I think considering how Vatic was, and if I were them, I would have made the same exact decision. But I think she's just never gonna stop the way that she's and she wants it. He even says she's an executioner for her cause. There's just no Vatic is inviting it, in other words. Like, this is kind of like Vatic's gonna end up one way or another dead. And she did. So I don't know. It's really
Kinda like
tough.
the
That's really good topic.
We also
Kinda
don't
like
know
the-
if they would
it's
have
kinda like
followed
the board
through.
with Hugh.
Right. It would if Lore had not dropped the shields, we don't know what would have happened. They
Why was
would
Lore plugged in?
right. That's a whole other topic. Right.
Kevin, you have to come. You have to go back in time and go on last week's discussion. We'll talk
Okay,
about
fair
that there.
fair
I just want to end. We are past our time. We usually try to keep these at an hour, but it's been really fun talking about all this stuff. And I'm sorry we can't keep going, but we do have to make space for Crusher Convo, and so they can go on time, and we can all get a little break before we attend there. But I just do want to say that. Really quickly, this has been like a really fun discussion and interesting discussion, but I think that for me, what's cool about this episode is that the last 2 episodes, the way it's being set up, are like a movie basically. So it's like we watched a season, we got a resolution to the season, and now we're going to go into this 2-part movie, basically, where we're gonna, I guess, meet this big bad, Red Jack, the Borg, whoever it's gonna be. But what I liked is that it could easily have gotten kind of mixed into the finale, and then I think my complaint then would have been like, oh, like they kind of sidelined her, or she became too cartoony. I do like that they chose to do a final, like a very final thing with Vatic, where, you know, she was with us for the first 8 episodes, and more or less, I think 7 episodes. She wasn't in the first, right? Was she? She was. Yeah, she was since the beginning. So yeah. So I love it. I love the way that they resolved that whole thing, and it felt very much like an ending to a season. Like I could see like a season ending here, and we're going into a part 2. So and you know, a lot of seasons these days are 8 episodes. So in a way, it's like they did end like Picard. Would it have been satisfying as a last hurrah for this TNG crew? No, which is why we're going to get these last 2 episodes. But let's talk a little bit about what your predictions are for that finale. Like I'll kick it off. I definitely now more than ever think it's the Borg, especially after the Red Jack theory, Ken. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm so disappointed if it's the Borg.
No. Sorry, I'm just kidding. But
Me too, Ken.
but I do think it's going to be the
You guys
Borg.
just wait.
Yeah, I know, it's true. But I think the Borg are behind this because of certain things that Vatic has said. The fact that she acknowledged 7 when she said, "Oh, it's like, it's fitting that you're here to witness this." You know, things like that. So whatever is inside of Jack, whatever they're trying to let out or use or whatever, I think is directly tied in with the Borg. How? I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of theories about like nanoprobe juice to like, you know, there's everything you can imagine going on. But that's my little theory for the finale. Let's let you tell us what your theory is next, PJ, and then we'll go around the clock and end with Marcelo.
Well, I think in episode 9, it's half of it's going to be all about what's behind this red door, or Freddy Krueger, or whoever it is.
Freddy Krueger,
like,
that would be awesome.
It seems very Nightmare on Elm Street kind of feel to it. We know from the clip from next episode that whatever it is, we don't see what it is, but Deanna is like scared shitless. So it's something really bad to where she even doesn't want to deal with it. So I think we're going to get the answers to that in episode 9, leading up to, I suppose, by the end of episode 9, they're going to be like 2 hours away from Frontier Day. So episode 10 would have to deal with that day, everything going on in that day. Hopefully it's an hour and 20 minutes like it's been rumored. But I think we're going to have a big battle between the bad guys in the new ships versus the good guys in the old ships. And it's going to be just nostalgia just splattered on the screen every single frame. It's just like, remember this and remember this and remember that.
Oh my God.
And people are gonna cry and they're gonna say yay and all that crap. That's it.
Ken.
Only Sohail's gonna cry because he barely cries. But so
I'm like Michael Burnham. I'm very expressive with my crying.
Right. So my theory, I think you're absolutely right in some respects, PJ. I think we're going to have the old ships versus the new ships. I mean, we're going to go back. We're going to find out what's behind Anger Bay 12, which I think is the Enterprise D. And I think you're going to have, you know, we know that there you go. They take it on. They take it on with the Phoenix. The Phoenix destroys them all. So we know
Cochrane
that
and the friend will come out and save the day.
Right. I think of all the clips. I'm trying to think about, are there any clips left from the trailers and whatnot that we have not seen yet? And I think the only ones that we've not seen yet is the Enterprise F. Yeah. And so and I don't think they're going to be on the Enterprise F. I think the Enterprise F will obviously be there, but I think it's going to be the Enterprise D, at least in part. So I think that's going to happen. I think we're going to find out that, you know, I honestly will be incredibly disappointed if it is the Borg, because It's
Same.
like, how many times do you go back to the well with the Borg?
They've already
mean,
made
we're
the
the-
Borg boring.
Right.
It's like, who cares about the Borg anymore? They were
Besides,
awesome at one point.
Right. Well, they were awesome with the best of both worlds. They were awesome right up to the point where Species 8472 just blew them up in 2 seconds. That's when they was like, okay, that's that. Which was, by the way,
Ken, real quick
Yeah.
interrupt,
Disagree.
real quick in, but what I
Yeah.
thought was interesting is I had this whole theory that they were going to resurrect Locutus with Jean-Luc's body, but they blew it up in this episode, so that
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. Right,
They
so
just
that's
needed
silly.
the little
Plus-
bits, the aerobotic bits.
What about
Plus,
the
I think-
reanimated corpse of Captain Kirk? That's gonna.
I don't think. I mean, I'm still hoping that William Shatner shows up, but I know Stanley hates that idea. But I think that would be really cool. I just don't know. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see. They have about 2.5 hours left in this thing. They're basically the length of a really long, good movie. I think it's going to be, nostalgia. It's going to be nostalgia all around. And I think it's, I do think they've got to tie more stuff back to TOS. And I think they're going to do it because I know Metalis and everybody's a big TOS fan. So we see what the TOS stuff is. It might just be, giant tribbles, giant attack tribbles. And the giant attack tribbles the attack tribbles have taken over Starfleet. Yeah, that's what it is. That's my theory. Attack tribbles.
They're all stacked on top of each other in those masks. That's what those guys.
Yeah,
are.
that's what it
those
is.
Guys were.
Yeah,
By the way-
that's right.
Cake is Eternal says a screaming go. Oh wait, sorry, wrong one. Did you guys see the triple handbag on Ted Lasso this week? I haven't seen it, but I look forward to now watching that. Go ahead, Kevin. Theories for the finale or next episode, and some final thoughts. And by the way, I meant for you guys to give ratings. So PJ and Ken, please give your ratings before we go out on that. So yeah, Kevin, we have a tradition of giving ratings on the show. You don't have to do it; it's just optional and stuff.
So I'm gonna give Jessie's rating because she was tricked out of giving it. So I'll give it a 5 Kirk's dead bodies out of 10.
Oh my!
But I expect I don't think that there's time to introduce an audience to something new or something obscure. So I'm guessing it's the Borg, but I truly don't know because the show just goes in weird places. Yeah, I have no idea what's coming. I'm pretty sure all of them are going to survive. I think that we saw the last of the deaths on the bridge. That's my guess. I don't know that to be true, but I don't know what's coming. It kind of feels like Game of Thrones, where like the last 2 episodes, like you guys have like 8 hours of plot left and 2 hours to tell it. But here we are.
Interesting analogy. I don't think the anyways, Chris.
Yeah, I have no desire to really theorize on what's coming, so I'll be short. I'm excited to be on the ride, and so far I trust Terry's planning and that it's going to pack a punch, be meaningful, and come together in the end. But so my score for this one will be, I felt this was a weaker one overall in the structure. I liked the slow tension of the beginning. I know someone called that out. I thought it was really tense, and I enjoyed every moment with Vadic on screen. But something seemed off. There was too much going on in the episode for it to have the space for all those conversations. Love the Data moment. Yes, it was obvious, but it was very satisfying to go through this memory lane. And then Spot.
There it is, Spock. That's what we really need. Spock's
The flesh head guy. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No.
From the Mirrorverse. No, but
Right.
my rating is right now, without seeing it, I've just heard it, 7.5 Vadic shards in space.
Vadic shards. Nice. Stan.
I enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed it more than last week's, but them together I enjoy more. So collectively, of the 8 so far, these 2 are my least favorite, but that it's a negative way of saying something that isn't negative to me, because this entire season has been excellent. I'm really excited to see what comes next. I do think it's the Borg. I think it is too late to introduce something new or to explain something old. In season 1, I was one of the people who's like, ugh, why are we so Borg centric? And then in season 2, I was like, oh, this is actually something new and interesting, a different way of seeing the Borg. And I kind of feel that way about this. I was kind of glad that they weren't very Borg heavy in this season, but it becoming the true big bad being the Borg, this decimated Borg in the Delta Quadrant using this new technique. Like, it adds a new layer. It's doing something different with something we already know. And it makes the Borg the connective tissue of all 3 seasons. Each has been distinct, but this incident in Picard's life has been so impactful. And so that being the connective tissue of the entire series of Star Trek Picard, I think has some poetry to it, even if it wouldn't have been my first choice a while back. But at this point, that's where I think it is. And so I am going to give it one additional unforeseen soon out of however many soons I said last week. One more new Noonian soon to be played by Brent Spiner. And my final prediction is, as you all know, if not the Borg, it is obviously Peanut Hamper.
Yes. Make it so.
I love the way you put that into kind of the way you kind of illustrated that about the 3 seasons all having something to do with Picard and his experience with the Borg and just the Borg kind of playing into it. So, and I do think it isn't, I understand some folks are Borg fatigued. Is that a good way of describing it? But to me, I've always been really fascinated with the Borg because I love technology. Like, there's a part of me that kind of wants to go into a synthetic body and like wants to transfer my consciousness into, other realms and things like that, and be able to like kind of, move beyond the physical, form or whatever. And, other than the fact that they're malevolent, the Borg, what's the difference between the Borg? I think someone brought this up, and like Betazoids, Betazeds or Betazans or whatever, they're a collective of sorts too. They can kind of hear each other's thoughts in proximity and stuff like that. So, or the Medusans, very good point. Yeah. So yeah, like to me, it's all very fascinating. So nice. I hadn't thought of that. Nice illustration there. So very cool, Stan. Braxton, what about you?
I'd give this episode a 6. Like I said, I thought that, it started off kind of slow, and then I started enjoying it, and then it disappointed me at the end because it didn't tell me what Jack was, and I've been waiting like 2 episodes. So I just give this episode a 6. I thought it was just okay. I'm looking forward to next week seeing what Jack is like. Opening the red door, and I hope that it is Ken's theory. I really like that. I really don't want to see Borg. I really don't want to see Paul Rates.
Why would Deanna be afraid of the Borg?
To pull something from TOS would be really cool. And I'm not a TOS fan, but I feel like I'm gonna watch the episode that what is it? Radjack is in. I'm gonna watch that and see.
Wolf in the Fold.
Wolf in the Fold. Yes. Definitely worth watching, and definitely curious what you'll think afterwards. Fathery's in the audience. Don't forget, tomorrow on Friday, you can check out Text Trek live at 8 p.m. Eastern time over on the Text Trek YouTube channel. So check that out. It's going to be another fun discussion. Marcelo.
Yeah, I feel really apart from a lot of the points that people have made, because I kind of didn't see a lot of the angles that some of you were coming at, because like I said in the opening, I love this goddamn episode so much, because it gave me kind of what I wanted to see from the start of the season. And the fact that I'm a big Nemesis guy, don't shoot me. And the fact that we have this new version of Data from that time period around now just makes me so happy. Like so many of you here, I do not want it to be the Borg. If it's the Borg, I swear to God, I'm going to like claw my own eyes out. But I really like that theory that it could be Red Jack. I've never seen that episode from the original series, so that is something that I'm gonna go do, just in case.
I didn't kill her.
It happens to be that. Like I said, this is my all-time favorite episode of modern Star Trek ever. So I enjoyed this episode immensely, and for that, this episode gets a 10 out of 10 for me. Great stuff.
I'll wrap it up by saying I agree with Marcelo. I think this is my favorite episode of Star Trek since it returned to television. And for me, the primary reason is Data. I love Data. When I was a kid, I used to pretend I was Data, just like that little kid who lost his parents. I have a GUI that would play in my head. I don't know what I was processing or dealing with, but I loved Data ever since I was a little kid, and he's always appealed to me. I did feel very satisfied with Data. I never liked Data's death in Nemesis, even though I thought it was okay that they did it that way. But I always wanted like something more, and I do think that season 1 gave me a very satisfactory thing, and I was very concerned about how Data would die again or like come back or what it would mean. And the way they treated it and addressed it, they didn't like shy away from it. Jean-Luc just straight out says like, are we, like, is this something that is going against your wishes? And I really liked this Data's answer. I also love the fact that like pretty much Data can be this thing. Like I'm in technology, and I understand how backups work and how versions work. And to me, applying that to a living organism is very interesting, because there can be multiple versions with different things. So I think it fits. Like I don't think it cheapens his previous deaths. I think that's the one character you could do this with, actually, like over and over again. It's torturous for the poor character and maybe the actor, and maybe it's not going to work well if everyone wants to bring Data back. But I think this is it. This is the limit. Like we can put it to rest. But yeah, I can watch this episode. I think Jill said it. I can watch those scenes with Data and Laura and just the way it all plays out on repeat over and over and over again. I think this is one of my favorite episodes for that. And just, it's exciting. The music, the thrill, like the whole, everything, just the end of Vadic, like the triumphant, like, fire everything we've got, destroying the strike. It just felt very satisfying, as I think Stan might have said that earlier. So yeah, go ahead.
I had one minor gripe, that everything we got didn't include everything they got. Like, where were the phasers?
Again, by the way. Yeah.
Like, is he not hearing them, or what's going on?
No. You know what she should have said?
Fault.
She should have
Maybe
said.
that's all they got.
She should have said, "Fire everything."
Maybe
It's
the
true.
phase.
It's
Maybe
true.
the
We should have
phasers
had a
against
full
auto
spread
tasting.
and phasers. Yeah, I agree with that. It's true. Anyways, this episode is currently unrateable for me because I just love it so much. So on that note, we are crossing into Crusher Convo territory. They start in a minute. So I hate to be what's the word?
PJ, what's your rating?
Oh shit, PJ. What didn't PJ go first?
No,
PJ
I didn't give it a rating.
Oh, you didn't give a rating. Sorry. What's your rating, PJ?
I'd give it 4 Red Jacks out of 5.
Only 4. And then
I mean, only 4. That's one. That's one down from perfect.
Yeah, it's one down for perfect. I will say that Vadic broke into 1,000 pieces, and if you watch the end of Wolf in the Fold, that's what happened to Red Jack. Dun, dun, dun. I will say that this is also. I will piggyback on PJ and say
Jack Crusher, Jack the Ripper connection,
and Red Jack, Red Door, Jack.
All right,
Jack.
let's
Gotta go.
talk about this
go.
on the salon. All right, live long and prosper, everyone, and we